you're looking to dive into topics on how to live a happier, healthier, more fit, and long lifespan, then you've come to the right podcast. Living the Dream with me, Coach Damian Evans. Together, we will explore the topics on all things health, fitness, and wellness. Together, we will be lifelong learners on this journey to living the ultimate dream. What up, Dream Team? Coach D here, coming at you from beautiful sunny San Diego, and welcome back to the Living the Dream podcast. And in today's episode, we're going to continue on with our review of the amazing book, Good Energy, by author Dr. Calley Means and her brother, Calley Means. The title of this chapter was Replenishing What Modernity Took Away: Movement, Temperature, and Non-Toxic Living. And in this chapter, we're diving into how modern life has disconnected us from the natural rhythms and environments that our bodies were designed to thrive in, leading to what's been coined as bad energy in this book. We're talking about the impact of excessive sitting, temperature-controlled environments, and the toxic load that we're all dealing with in today's world. It all started with Dr. Means having a stark realization during her time in med school, sitting for hours on end, crammed into lecture halls, and being fed a diet of processed, unhealthy food, all while learning about diseases like diabetes and heart disease. The irony was so hard to miss, and it sparked a movement, pun intended. It sparked a movement to rethink how we live and how we work. The idea was simple. Our bodies are designed to move. Movement is life, motion is lotion, and fitness is medicine. Our bodies are designed to move. And by constantly seeking comfort, we're actually doing ourselves more harm than good. When we look at the most resilient, nutrient-packed plants, they're often the ones that have faced the harshest conditions. And the same goes for our bodies. A little bit of stress, whether it's through movement, a little bit of stress through exposure to varying temperatures or other challenges, can actually make us stronger. Those stresses can make us healthier and more resilient. Think about it like a workout, but only for your 37 trillion different cells. They rise to the challenge that you put on them. The stress that you put on them, they rise to that challenge and they adapt, becoming better equipped to handle the demands of life. But here's the kicker. While we've designed our modern lives to be as comfortable as possible, we've also stripped away the very things that keep us healthy. We're not moving enough. We're avoiding all discomfort. We're going towards the pleasure end of the spectrum and avoiding the pain end of the spectrum at all costs. And we're exposing ourselves to a staggering amount of synthetic chemicals that we've never been exposed to before, many of which are directly linked to obesity and other chronic health diseases. This chapter is all about understanding these modern challenges and finding ways to reconnect with the natural world, bringing back those essential stressors that help us build good energy and live healthier lives. So let's explore what's been taken away and how we can start reclaiming our health by moving more, by embracing a little bit of discomfort, and by being more mindful of the toxins in our environment. This isn't just about adding more tasks to our to-do list. It's about shifting our mindset and rethinking how we live day to day. The goal is to create a life where these health-promoting practices are woven into the fabric of our daily routines, rather than just being another box that we need to check off. So let's start by addressing a big problem in our modern lives: movement, or rather the lack of movement. Despite being the only primate capable of walking upright, we spend nearly 80% of our time sitting. It's a reality that echoes the dystopian future depicted in Pixar's WALL-E, where humans live sedentary lives, relying on technology to do everything for them. Sadly, this portrayal isn't too far off from our current situation. Despite our collective desire to be fit, evidenced by the millions of fitness center memberships and the billions spent on health and fitness each year, our population is getting sicker. Since the year 2000, fitness memberships have doubled, but obesity has risen by 10%. We don't have a lack of fitness memberships. The US has more gyms than any other country, yet we are among the most overweight. This disconnect between our desire to be healthy and our actual habits points to a fundamental issue with how we view exercise. We've turned exercise into this task, this something that we have to check off of our to-do list rather than it being an integral part of our daily lives. We think that just 1 hour out of the day to go to the gym will get us to where we need to be when it comes to our fitness and health goals. But our bodies are designed for regular, consistent movement, not just an hour at the gym. Historically, movement was essential for our survival. Hunting, gathering, and traveling on foot. But today, only 1.3% of Americans work in agriculture, and most of us sit or lie down for the majority of the day. Unlike many cities in Europe and Asia, American urban areas are designed for cars, not pedestrians. This lack of walkability has serious consequences with higher rates of prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, and obesity in less walkable areas. Even if you hit the gym every single day, sitting for long periods still pose significant health risks. Research shows that prolonged sedentary time is linked to poor health outcomes regardless of physical activity levels. So even if you work out every single day for an hour, if you sit the rest of the day, you can still not have the health that you want. And you can still see that sitting is a monster that can undo the benefits of all of your workouts. The real key to improving your metabolism and your health isn't just about hitting the gym. Even though the gym is great, and even though working out every single day is great, it's also about incorporating movement into every aspect of your daily life. We talk all the time about why muscle contraction is so important, why muscle is so important. When our muscles are regularly engaged, when they contract, even at low intensities, our physiology operates differently than if we only exercise for an hour a day. Muscle activity triggers a chain of reactions in the body, starting with the entry of calcium into the cells and the depletion of ATP, our energy currency. And this cascade of events sets off signaling pathways that push the cell to process glucose, blood sugar, or fat to make more ATP, fueled by the activation of something called AMPK, a protein that senses energy levels in the cells. This AMPK activates a powerhouse protein, which is called PGC1 alpha. You don't have to know this, but this ATP energy currency of the cell, when used, it sets off an activation of a protein that then activates another protein. And this increases fat burning. It increases blood sugar uptake. It increases the creation of more mitochondria, our cells' energy factories. And it also stimulates something called mitophagy, which is a process where cells clear out the old dysfunctional mitochondria to make room for new, healthy ones. Without this effective mitophagy, we accumulate poor quality mitochondria that produce excess free radicals, which leads to that oxidative stress, which is that hallmark of bad energy that we've been talking about. So all that to say is when you use your muscles, when you contract and release your muscles consistently throughout the day, you're turning on these processes that increase fat burning, blood sugar uptake, the creation of mitochondria, and the getting and clearing out of your old dysfunctional mitochondria. It's all good things. Not only that, but it also releases these things called hope molecules that Dr. Kelly McGonigal talked about in her book, The Joy of Movement. You have to check out that book. The book is called The Joy of Movement by Dr. Kelly McGonigal. She's amazing. But getting back to, if we don't exercise, it leads to this buildup of poor quality mitochondria. And while exercise does induce some free radicals, exercise promotes the expression of antioxidant genes, which boost our body's defense systems. Additionally, muscle activity has been shown to decrease chronic inflammation over time. There's a short, acute inflammatory response when you do exercise, but that is an acute response. And over time, it actually decreases chronic inflammation. This is because muscle acts as an anti-inflammatory, hormone-secreting organ. That's right, your muscle is an organ. Your body fat is also an organ. Your skin is an organ. All of these things, they release proteins or hormones. And the muscle, it releases something called myokines. Myokines are proteins that modulate the immune response and they limit inflammation. They help with your immunity. They help with your inflammation. And perhaps most importantly, muscle contraction helps manage glucose levels in the blood. And it can do this without relying on insulin. This is so cool. Whereas most of the cells in your body, they require insulin to unlock this door. Insulin is the key that unlocks the door so that glucose can get through. So like your fat cells, in order for glucose to get into your fat cells, insulin has to unlock this door. But your muscles can contract on their own. And on the back end, they can suck up this glucose out of your blood, which is like amazing that you don't need to have this insulin in order to do that. Even in people with type 2 diabetes who are insulin resistant, exercise allows them to clear glucose from the blood nearly as effectively as those without diabetes. And this is because exercise stimulates that protein called AMPK, which signals glucose channels to move to the cell membrane and let glucose in. I think that's so awesome. I think it's an amazing thing that our body has done. And it's just one more reason why exercise and being able to contract and move your muscles is so important throughout the day, not just one time during the day. This ability to clear glucose without heavy reliance on insulin is crucial for increasing insulin sensitivity in your body. A single session of exercise can improve insulin sensitivity for at least 16 hours. One single session of exercise for at least 16 hours. In fact, just taking a gentle walk after a high carbohydrate meal can reduce the glucose spike by about 30%. Whoa. One of the biggest hacks that you can do if you get anything out of this episode, after every big meal, especially a high carbohydrate meal, take a 10-minute walk, at least a 10-minute walk. You will see changes in your health if you do that consistently over the long term. Muscle contraction is a silver bullet for processing excess food energy, preventing it from clogging up our cells and leading to dysfunction. I know a lot of people that get frustrated at me because I sometimes eat high carbohydrate meals. I eat pizza and I'll have an IPA with it and they'll be like, oh, you don't get any fat. And I'm like, I have so much muscle on my body that I have earned the ability to be able to do this. Yeah, there are some unhealthy things about it for sure, but it gives you so much leeway and ability to have a little bit of leniency with your diet when you have this muscle mass. Through exercise, we stimulate the production of more and healthier mitochondria, upregulating antioxidant defenses and reducing inflammation, all of which are contributing to generating good energy and promoting your long-term health. This understanding of movement as a constant, integrated part of your life, rather than this separate occasional activity, is the key to reversing the damage of our sedentary, comfort-driven modern existence. We have to figure out how to get more movement into our day. So if you have a desk job, you can figure out different positions to put yourself in. You don't always have to be seated with your butt on a chair with your knees and your hips at 90 degrees. You can be in a lunge position. You can be standing in a wide straddle stance position. You can stand on one leg. You can stand in a split stance with one knee behind you. You can sit on a physio ball. You can be in a 90-90 hip stretching position with the computer on a chair seat or on a couch. You can be on the floor in a back extension position. So you're lying face down with your palms, with your forearms in front of you, holding you up, kind of like a Sphinx pose in yoga, and you're typing. And I sit like that all the time on my computer. Just figure out a way to get your body in different positions. Figure out a way to move. Set an alarm on your phone for every hour to get up. Buy a rebounder, a tiny mini trampoline, and every hour do 60 seconds of rebounding. Or like right now, I'm sitting on a yoga inversion chair, which I can get up off of this chair and I can get into a headstand and I can get my feet above me and I can sit with my shoulders supported by this chair and I can hang upside down and get the blood flow from my legs back up to my organs and get some blood flow into my brain. Figure out a way for you to not just be in one position for too long. And standing in one position is also one position that we want to try not to stay in for too long. It's any position. So let's dive deeper into how simple, frequent movement can significantly impact our health. Every time you stand up from your desk and you take a brief walk or do something as simple as air squats, you're signaling your body to clear glucose from the bloodstream and convert that blood glucose into energy. This process is drastically different from someone who remains seated all day long and only exercises for an hour in the evening. Without regular movement, the muscles aren't getting the signal to use up that excess glucose, which means it stays in the bloodstream, relying on the hormone insulin to store it in our cells. What's important to note here is that your daily movement doesn't need to be intense to be effective, but it does need to be consistent. We say it all the time. Long-term consistency over short-term intensity every time. A fascinating study looked at the impact of different movement regimens on post-meal glucose levels. So this study looked at different movements after people ate their meals. Participants either didn't exercise at all, or they jogged for 20 minutes before and after their meals, or they did short bursts of jogging for just 3 minutes every half hour throughout the day. So some people didn't exercise at all. Some people did a 20-minute jog before or after a meal. And then another group did short bursts of jogging for just 3 minutes every half hour throughout the day. The total amount of jogging time was the same for each of the groups that jogged, which was 60 minutes per day. But the group that did the short, frequent bursts of activity saw a significantly greater reduction in post-meal glucose spikes, spreading it out, not just one bulk of movement one time. This is why I give all of my clients the goal of every hour, get up off of your chair and go up and down stairs at an uncomfortable speed. Up and down stairs 1 to 5 to 10 times, however much you want to invest in it, but do it every hour. And even walking can have this effect. Okay, here's another study involving 70 healthy adults. They compared 3 different scenarios. The first scenario was sitting for 9 hours. That was the control group. The other scenario was walking for 30 minutes once during the day. And then the third scenario was taking regular short walks of just over a minute every 30 minutes. So they did just a little bit of a walk, 1 minute of walking every 30 minutes. The other group did 30 minutes of walking once a day. And then the first group just sat for 9 hours. The group that took the short, frequent walks had the lowest post-meal glucose peaks and insulin levels, proving that consistent movement throughout the day is more beneficial than a single bout of exercise when it comes to this. Think of it this way. If your body needs 90 ounces of water a day, you wouldn't just drink it all at once and then avoid drinking for the rest of the day. Or at least you shouldn't. Instead, you'd probably sip throughout the day to stay hydrated. And movement works the same way. Those annoying stand-up reminders on your Apple Watch or other wearables, they're actually backed by solid science and could be the most crucial prompts that you get all day from those devices. The most important thing those devices can do for you might be those little tiny annoying stand up should you stretch your legs notifications. Now let's talk about a term that's gaining traction: non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT. One of my favorite topics, NEAT. Did a whole episode on this one a long time ago. This fancy acronym essentially refers to all the spontaneous physical activity that we do outside of our intentional exercise. NEAT was just a part of our everyday life before the urbanization of work and the shift to desk-based jobs. It includes activities like cleaning your house, grocery shopping, gardening, walking to your car, climbing the stairs, using a standing desk, and even fidgeting. The concept of NEAT highlights the importance of integrating more movement into your daily life, not just in the gym. The gym is so important for that resistance training effect that we really want to get to help us with our muscle mass, with our resiliency, with our bone density. It's great. Don't get me wrong. I will never say that going to the gym is not a great thing, but integrating more movement throughout your day is so crucial here. For example, treadmill desks have become really popular as a way to incorporate more movement into our workdays. And some research suggests that using a treadmill desk at a slow speed for just 2.5 hours a day could lead to significant weight loss over a year. Although this hasn't been definitively proven, some studies have shown that even just 2.5 hours of treadmill desk use per day over 10 days can lead to some fat loss and even a little bit of muscle gain. But let's not forget that the thermogenesis part of NEAT, the NEAT, the thermogenesis part, which refers to the heat generated by our body when we exercise. When we contract our muscles, we require more ATP, our body's energy currency. And when ATP is used, it releases energy, some of which dissipates as heat. This heat generation is why people with more muscle mass tend to run a little bit warmer. And interestingly, research has shown that our average body temperature has dropped about 2% since pre-industrial times, which is concerning because it suggests a decline in our metabolic rates and our overall vitality. So by simply moving more throughout the day, whether it's through short walks, standing up frequently, or engaging in spontaneous physical activities, you're not only stoking your internal fire, but you're also boosting your overall metabolic health. This kind of movement keeps our energy levels steady. This kind of movement improves glucose clearance, and it helps maintain a healthy metabolism. All of these things that contribute to generating good energy and supporting our long-term health. Let's break down how modern marketing has confused us about exercise, turning it into a complex and often overwhelming task rather than a natural part of our daily lives. Despite the overwhelming number of studies on physical activity, which could easily leave anyone feeling lost, the core message remains simple: move more, sit less. This confusion is part of a global $800 billion fitness industry, which I am a part of, that consistently, it pushes us to question our approach to whatever exercise that we think that we might be doing. And is it good or is it bad? The reality is, while we debate over the minutia of this exercise program or that exercise regimen, like other things like the perfect time for high intensity interval training or the optimal heart rate for fat burning, or is fasted cardio great or not, most Americans aren't even meeting the basic guidelines for physical activity. We're trying to get all of these tiny little things when we're missing the biggest picture. Here's the bigger picture. All kinds of physical activity are beneficial, and the simplest acts like walking have a profound impact on our metabolic health. For example, just walking about 10,000 steps per day is associated with a 50% lower risk of dementia, a 44% lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes, and significant reductions in obesity and other chronic conditions. These benefits are not from complicated high intensity, this or that workout routines, but from consistent, simple movement. The average American takes like 4,000 steps a day. You can double that with just a 40-minute walk, which is just 4 10-minute walks spread out throughout the day. And then when you get up into that 10,000 steps range, now we're really talking about helping with those chronic conditions. Now consider this, if a medication could cut your risk of Alzheimer's by 50%, it would be a medical sensation. It would cost millions. But this medication exists, and it's as simple as walking. Yet it's prescribed by fewer than 16% of doctors, and the medical system as a whole remains slow to adjust, even in the face of clear evidence, which, to give the doctors a little bit of benefit of the doubt here, the reason why they probably don't prescribe it is because the adherence is probably abysmal. When you tell someone to change their lifestyle, they would much rather take a pill. So this isn't just on the medical system, even though the way it's set up is terrible. We've talked about this in previous episodes, but we also have a role to play in this as consumers, as people who are not taking the challenge of creating lifestyle changes. We have to take this role, and we have to make it so that it's way more important to us, and not thinking that there's a pill for every ill. Let's take the COVID-19 pandemic as an example. Studies showed that people who were consistently inactive before contracting the virus were nearly twice as likely to be hospitalized and nearly 4 times as likely to die compared to those who were more active. Twice as likely to be hospitalized. Exercise was identified as a crucial factor in supporting mitochondrial health, which plays a key role in immunity and recovery. I said this back in 2020. You can go check my posts. Now, I had a lot of people talk to me and they were like, oh, did you hear about that marathon runner that died because of this or that? Okay, there's extremes here. We have to realize there's extremes. Just because someone runs marathons or does triathlons doesn't mean that they are metabolically healthy. They might have great aerobic endurance, but they are, and I'm talking to myself here, I average way more than I should when it comes to steps. Back when I was coaching group fitness at Orange Theory, I would coach, it was 35 classes a week. I would do 5 classes back to back to back. And then I would go out and I would party with my friends in the afternoon, and I would drink alcohol and I would stay up late and I wouldn't sleep. I was sick like once every 3 weeks. I would lose my voice every week. And it's because, and I was like, I looked probably the most fit that I've ever looked. You can be on a spectrum here. So you can be really fit cardiovascularly, but you could be putting yourself into a ton of metabolic stress. And so there's a reason here why people that exercised, studies showed that people who were consistently inactive before contracting the virus were nearly twice as likely to be hospitalized and nearly 4 times as likely to die compared to those who were more active. It's because exercise was identified as a crucial factor in supporting mitochondrial health, which plays a key role in our immunity and our recovery. Yet this didn't make it into the public health recommendations. I was waiting and waiting and waiting for them to say, get outside, go exercise, move your bodies, try to get more stress management. Like it was crazy how none of that came. And I think it only came maybe 2.5 years later, showing that we are disconnected between science and the advice given to the public. So how do we cut through the noise? It all boils down to 3 simple rules. Number 1, write this down or make this a goal. Number 1, walk at least 7,000 steps per day, ideally working your way up to 10,000 steps, and space these steps throughout the day. Now, if you're only averaging 2,000 steps, don't start by getting right up to 10,000 steps, because that's not how you're going to make a lifestyle change. Figure out different pockets of time that you can do this. Maybe it's just 1-minute breaks every hour, but figure out a way to slowly increase from where you're at to get to 7,000, ideally then working your way up to 10,000, and then try to figure out how to space those out throughout the day. That's number 1. Number 2, get your heart rate up above 60% of your maximum for at least 150 minutes a week. So that's about 30 minutes, 5 days a week. So if you take a general equation is 220 minus your age. If you're 40 years old, then 220 minus 40 is 180 beats per minute. 180 beats per minute for a 40-year-old is about maximum heart rate for someone that age on average. Now, 60% of that, you want to spend 30 minutes in that range a day for 5 days a week. If you can get at least 150 minutes a week of 60% of your maximum heart rate, that is going to be a great goal to shoot for. That's number 2. Now, number 3 is lift heavy things. Lift heavy things multiple times per week to engage every major muscle group. A good start here is twice a week, do a full body workout and hit each major muscle group in that full body with maybe 3 to 5 sets of work, where those sets are taken to a very challenging effort. So if I was personal training you, I would say, I want you to get to within about 2 reps of where your form is about to go. When your form starts to suffer, when your form starts to fail, I want you to get about 2 reps within that to where you're trying to move the weight faster and it's not moving faster. I love to see it when people get the aha moment, when they get to a point where they've been lifting for years and years of just picking a light weight and counting the reps and being done with the exercise. And then when I ask them to go heavier and they do like 1 through 7 reps pretty decently, and then their 8th and 9th and 10th rep, they're trying to move it faster and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so heavy. I'm like, those last 3 reps did way more for you than any of the previous reps you've probably ever done. Lift heavy things multiple times per week and engage every major muscle group. Try to hit each major muscle group at least twice a week. So 2 full body workouts a week is a great place to start. These guidelines might seem so basic, but they are so incredibly powerful. Following these steps will not only improve your overall health, but will also ignite a curiosity and a drive to explore more personalized strategies. You'll naturally find yourself seeking out better nutrition and more advanced fitness routines once you feel the benefits of these simple practices. And if you can invest in a personal trainer, invest in a coach, that is going to be the gold standard, only because doing it on your own, you're going to have to go through trial and error. You're going to do things incorrectly, and you're going to do things that are going to take you backwards. It's just natural. I did it myself, and I was going to school for it. I studied, I did certifications for it. I'm still to this day learning and growing. Getting someone that has gone through that to help guide you so that you can just kind of weed out all the nonsense and not necessary effort and energy is so impactful. If you're thinking that a personal trainer is too expensive, I want you to think about how much money you spend on coffee, how much money you spend on alcohol, how much money you spend on going out to eat. And I want you to take that and I want you to think about, how can I maybe cut that in half and invest in just one training session with one really good personal trainer to see just what kind of benefits you can get. It is an investment. It is expensive and not everyone can do it, but it's a priority that I think is really, really, really important to invest in. Let's dig a little bit deeper into that 150 minutes of elevated heart rate per week. We call it Zone 2. Zone 2 aerobic training is where the magic happens. This is the sweet spot where your heart rate is at about 60 to 70% of its maximum, which you can calculate by subtracting that 220 from your age. Zone 2 training is like a brisk walk or a light jog, and it feels surprisingly easy at first. But it's incredibly effective at improving your mitochondrial health, your blood sugar glucose uptake, and the overall cardiovascular efficiency of your body. For those looking to push a little bit harder, you could incorporate HIIT training, HIIT, high intensity interval training. And this can bring in even more metabolic benefits, but it's a little bit more higher intense. It's a little bit more risky. And a lot of people just turn a high intensity interval training session into getting your heart rate up for a long period of time and never letting it recover. HIIT involves short bursts of intense activity followed by long periods of rest. Pushing your heart rate into the 80 to 95% range of its maximum capacity, and then letting it recover back down, back into zone 2, back into zone 1 before you hit another high intensity effort. It's a great way to maximize the benefits of a shorter workout session, but most people abuse this, especially those type A cortisol junkie go-getters. They sometimes use this, and it just ends up putting more stress on the body that they don't need. Because remember, the exercise is a stress, and it's in the recovery where you adapt from that stress and you get better, faster, stronger. But we can't talk about metabolic health without mentioning resistance training. Lifting weights or engaging in body weight exercises like push-ups or pull-ups or squats or stairs or rucking is critical. Muscle mass is directly correlated with insulin sensitivity, and resistance training has been shown to decrease fat mass. It's been shown to improve glucose tolerance, and it's been shown to reduce blood pressure. Muscle isn't just about strength. It is literally a metabolic shield. It's what helps us maintain a healthy metabolism, especially as we age. This is particularly crucial for women as they enter middle age and face a natural decline in metabolism due to hormonal changes. And as Dr. Gabrielle Lyon puts it, we aren't over fat, we are under muscle. By focusing on building muscle rather than just losing weight, when you train to be strong, when you eat to be nourished, when you work out to build, we can improve our body composition and our metabolic health in a sustainable way. The takeaway: start moving and keep it simple. Whether it's walking, lifting, or just breaking up your day with short bursts of activity, it's all about building consistent, sustainable habits that work for your life and your body. When you're aiming to be among the 6.8% of metabolically healthy Americans, that means that almost 94% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy. That's everybody. Regular movement is your key to success. Exercise has been shown to improve 5 critical biomarkers of metabolism, making it an essential part of any strategy to achieve and maintain metabolic health. So if you have blood sugar in the pre-diabetic range, regular exercise can help bring it down to a healthier level. A 12-week exercise program, whether it involves high-intensity running or low-intensity running or resistance training, has been shown to lower blood sugar from the pre-diabetic range to the non-diabetic range. This highlights how effective consistent movement can be in managing our glucose levels. HDL. HDL often refers as the good cholesterol. It's another crucial biomarker. And in a 2019 review, found that exercise consistently increased HDL levels, with the volume of exercise being more important than the intensity. That means that they did more sets at a lower intensity, and it was more beneficial towards their increased HDL levels. This is significant because unlike pharmaceutical interventions, which haven't shown convincing clinical benefits in raising HDL levels, regular physical activity has a positive impact on this really important aspect of our metabolic health. And we can't talk about HDL without talking about triglycerides. If you have triglycerides above 150, high triglyceride levels are a risk factor for heart disease, but they can be effectively lowered with physical activity. A study in 2019 found that an 8-week program of moderate aerobic exercise significantly reduced triglyceride levels. Even a single session of intense aerobic exercise can lower triglycerides the next day, likely due to an increased activity of something called hepatic lipase, which is an enzyme in the liver that helps to remove triglycerides from the bloodstream. Blood pressure. If your blood pressure is 130 over 85 or higher, if your blood pressure is elevated, exercise can have an effect comparable to that of commonly prescribed medications. Comparable to commonly prescribed medications. Regular movement has been shown to help manage and reduce high blood pressure, which is crucial for reducing the risk of cardiovascular events. And then fifth, a waistline of more than 35 inches for women and 40 inches for men. Waist circumference is a critical indicator of metabolic health. Regular exercise helps to reduce obesity by increasing energy expenditure and promoting weight loss. Research clearly shows that the more movement you do leads to a smaller waistline. Those who engage in higher levels of physical activity, more than 9,000 steps per day, have a much lower risk of central obesity in the midsection compared to those with lower activity levels, fewer than 5,000 steps per day. So again, by regularly engaging in physical activity, you not only improve these key biomarkers, but you also take significant steps toward achieving and maintaining optimal health. Whether it's through walking, running, or any other form of consistent movement, the benefits are clear. More movement leads to better health outcomes across the board. Okay, so I got a little carried away with the movement here. That was one of the three things that we're going to talk about. So I'm going to kind of go through the other two a little bit quicker. Replenishing what modernity took away. First was movement. Second is temperature. Temperature can be a powerful tool for improving your health, particularly when used strategically to stress your cells in a controlled way. By exposing your body to extreme temperatures, you can activate adaptogens that reduce chronic oxidative stress and inflammation, leading to better overall metabolic health. So we're going to talk about heat, and we're going to talk about cold exposure. Our ancestors lived in environments with wide temperature fluctuations, which kept their bodies consistently adapting. In contrast, modern life, with its climate-controlled homes and offices, has led to a state of what we call thermoneutrality. This is where our bodies are rarely challenged to generate heat, and they're rarely challenged to cool down. This lack of temperature variation leaves our mitochondria bored and understimulated. Interestingly, research shows that our average body temperature has dropped over the last 2 centuries, possibly due to a lower metabolic rate, which suggests that our mitochondria are not working as hard as they should be or as they could be. When we expose ourselves to cold, our bodies kick into this gear, higher gear that regulates internal temperature throughout mechanisms like shivering and non-shivering thermogenesis. Shivering rapidly contracts muscles, producing heat, while non-shivering thermogenesis involves something called brown fat, which we did a whole episode on brown fat just a few weeks ago, a special type of fat that burns energy to produce heat rather than storing energy like white fat. Brown fat is packed with mitochondria, making it metabolically active and beneficial for glucose regulation. Studies show that people with more brown fat tend to have lower body mass and better glucose control. Cold exposure can activate this brown fat, which helps to manage our blood sugar levels. For example, sleeping in a room at 66 degrees Fahrenheit for a month can double brown fat activity and improve insulin sensitivity. Whoa, sleeping in a room of 66 degrees Fahrenheit for a month can double brown fat activity. Even short periods of cold exposure, like wearing a cooling vest or doing cold plunging or doing the new hot thing, jumping into an ice bath, this can significantly increase energy expenditure and glucose disposal in people with brown fat. Now, heat exposure also has its benefits. Regular sauna use, for instance, this sauna use can trigger a stress adaptation response similar to exercise, increasing proteins like HSP70, which improve insulin sensitivity and reduce inflammation. Heat exposure has been linked to lower blood pressure, improved cardiac markers, reduced LDL, reduced and lower fasting blood glucose levels, and many other things. We've done episodes on cold exposure. We've done episodes on sauna use and steam rooms and heat exposure. If you can't find those, let me know and I'll send you the direct link. I don't want to go too far into it in this episode. It's already running a little long. Research also highlights the mood-enhancing effects of temperature extremes. Cold exposure can boost your dopamine levels by 250%. I know some addicts, recovering addicts that are friends of mine that use cold plunges as a way to help them get that dopamine boost that they're lacking when they remove their addiction. While heat exposure through repeated sauna use can lower cortisol, which is the main stress hormone, and upregulate antioxidant defenses. So before investing in an expensive piece of equipment like a sauna or an ice bath, you literally can start with simple practices. Here are 6 of them. Number 1, turn the shower to cold for 2 minutes at the end of your shower. Boom. And then you can slowly increase the time, or you can increase the bursts of cold water, or you could just do it all cold if you could work your way up to it. Number 2, jumping into cold bodies of water like rivers, lakes, or oceans. Except for here in San Diego, the ocean is beautiful right now in the summer, so it's not much of a cold plunge anymore. But during the winters, oh yeah, it gets there. Trust me, the good old Pacific Ocean, even though we're in Southern California, it still gets cold. Number 3, joining a cold plunging or sauna group in your area. You could go to a gym like a 24. I go to LA Fitness just because they have a sauna and a basketball court. One thing about LA Fitness that I want to put them on blast, because I pay my membership day after day and I only use the sauna and the basketball courts. And sometimes I won't go for months and months at a time. And I continue to pay my membership. And then my credit card got stolen and I didn't pay for one day. And they immediately called me like 10 times. I'm like, bro, if you cared so much about your people, you would call them when they didn't show up for months. But you don't care about your people. You're just here to make money. So shame on you, LA Fitness. Be better. Be better. Anyway, off my soapbox. Join a cold plunging group or a sauna group in your area. That could be one thing you could do. Hot yoga classes. Hot yoga classes do a great job of this. Man, I go to Core Power once a week with Nicole in Core Power Del Mar. She rocks and it kicks my butt. It gets me my balance. It gets me my stretching. It gets me my breath work. And it definitely stresses my heat exposure. My ability to handle the heat has increased because of these yoga classes. So that's a good thing there. Exercising outdoors in the heat with precautions for hydration and sun exposure, of course, but getting outside when it's hot and not trying to just turn on the AC every time it gets a little bit warm. Or you could definitely use a sauna or a hot tub at a local gym, or if your apartment complex has a hot tub. I love getting into the hot tub, and you really have to stay under until you get uncomfortable for an uncomfortable amount of time. If you're just hips and lower under the water, you're really not getting the benefits. You need to be like up to your chin. You need to be there for a period of time that gets uncomfortable. When you want to get out, just stay a little bit longer for an uncomfortable amount of time, as long as it's safe. And that's when you're really starting to get the benefits, when you're uncomfortable. Challenge to change. Nothing changes if you don't challenge yourself. While exact recommendations for heat and cold exposure vary, Dr. Andrew Huberman suggests aiming for 57 minutes of sauna time and 11 minutes of cold exposure per week to see significant metabolic benefits. And he's done masterclass episodes on this. If you can't find those, message me and I can send you the links. I have them saved. By incorporating these practices into your routine, you can awaken your mitochondria and enhance your metabolism and improve your overall health. Okay, so that's temperature. So we've done movement, we've done temperature. What else did modernity take away? Non-toxic living. So we're going to move into this last portion here. Synthetic chemicals and environmental toxins. Our modern world is saturated with synthetic chemicals and environmental toxins, which are significant, but often overlooked. These are overlooked contributors to poor health, to metabolic dysfunction. And if you haven't read the book by Dr. Stephen Cabral called The Rain Barrel Effect, you got to read this book if you're interested in any type of environmental toxin and synthetic chemical exposures. He goes really far in depth. Since World War II, over 80,000 synthetic chemicals have been introduced into our environment, with around 1,500 new chemicals added every single year. Shockingly, many of these chemicals have never been tested for their safety on adults, children, or fetuses, yet they are pervasive in our air, our food, our water, our homes, everywhere. You can't get away from them, even if you try. These substances can impair our microbiome, they can impair our gene expression, our hormone regulation, and even our mitochondrial function, leading to the hallmark issues of bad energy, oxidative stress, inflammation, mitochondrial dysfunction. Some of these chemicals are now being classified as what we call obesogens. Obesogens, these are agents that can disrupt metabolism and contribute directly to obesity and insulin resistance. The pervasiveness of toxins is incredible here. Examples of these obesogens are everywhere. They're in our household cleaners, our cosmetics and makeup, our fragrances, our plastic products, our food preservatives, and even the ink on the receipts that you get at the store. The fact that these substances can be found in nearly every aspect of daily life is alarming, to say the least, especially considering their potential to disrupt metabolic processes. For instance, a bowl of ultra-processed cereal like Cheerios might not only contain refined grains, but also additives like pesticides and chemicals from packaging, all of which contribute to a quadruple dose of bad energy potential. Many synthetic chemicals are added to products not for health benefits, but to increase shelf life and to reduce cost and to enhance scents artificially, the scent, how it smells. They're not doing it for our health. They're doing it because it helps them sell more product. That's messed up. I don't support any company that does that. And if they don't do the research in order to get away from that, then shame on them. There is something called GRAS. The GRAS, or GRAS, generally recognized as safe. This is a status given by the FDA. It's often based on incomplete or biased research, allowing companies to self-regulate the safety of their products. If you're going to let a company self-regulate the safety of their products, then of course you're going to let some things slide, and maybe it's even going to be unintentionally or unconsciously. You have to incentivize what you want to see. This flawed system means that many chemicals in our daily lives could be far more harmful than we realize. Let's go through 9 dangerous chemical classes to understand the scope of the problem. Let's look at these 9 classes of chemicals known to harm human health, particularly through metabolic mechanisms. The first one you've probably heard of, BPA. This stands for bisphenol A. This is found in plastics and receipts. BPA is a hormone disruptor linked to obesity, insulin resistance, and chronic inflammation. BPA interferes with antioxidant capacity and mitochondrial function. And even if your product says BPA free, it doesn't mean that that company didn't make just a slight change to their plastic recipe in order to get that BPA free logo, but it still might have a form of plastic that is not good for our health. So we have to be really careful with that and use as minimal plastics as we can when we're doing things like heating up our food or heating up our drinks or drinking water bottles that are that were in our car for a long time in the summer heat. Like, we can't be drinking that stuff. If it tastes like plastic, it's because you're drinking plastic. Number 2, phthalates. Phthalates are common in cosmetics and plastics, and phthalates disrupt hormones and are associated with insulin resistance. They're associated with early puberty and asthma. They also increase oxidative stress and mitochondrial toxicity. Phthalates. Number 3 are parabens. Parabens are used in personal care products, and parabens bind to hormone receptors and disrupt hormonal activity, leading to issues like infertility and DNA damage in sperm. So it sounds like personal care products and cosmetics and makeups. Man, do we have to be careful with this kind of stuff. Number 4 is triclosan. This is an antimicrobial agent in products like toothpaste, and triclosan disrupts mitochondrial function, reduces ATP production, and increases oxidative stress. Toothpaste. Number 5, dioxins. This is a byproduct of the industrial process that comes with processing certain products. Dioxins are persistent pollutants linked to cancers, immune disorders, and reproductive issues. They cause mitochondrial stress and chronic inflammation. So look for dioxins and try to avoid those. Number 6, polychlorinated biphenyls, PCBs. Polychlorinated biphenyls. Although banned, PCBs persist in the environment, contaminating air, water, and food. They impair mitochondrial function and glucose metabolism. And there's not a lot we can do about these PCBs. They're in things like transformers and capacitors. They're in oil used in motors and hydraulic systems, fluorescent light bulbs and cable insulation. So they're just all around us, used in these industrial products. The next thing is number 7, which are really hard to pronounce: polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS. PFAS, these are found in non-stick cookware and food packaging. PFASs are forever chemicals that damage mitochondria, cause oxidative stress, and increase cancer risk. So in non-stick cookware, I feel like we've used those all growing up. Food packaging, they're called forever chemicals. Number 8, organophosphate pesticides. These pesticides, which cover much of our food supply, are linked to oxidative stress, cancer, and neurotoxic effects. They particularly harm farmers and children. And then number 9, heavy metals. Metals like mercury and lead found in contaminated water and food cause oxidative stress and mitochondrial dysfunction, leading to severe health issues. So we just went through those only because I wanted to kind of get a picture of like where these toxins and dangerous chemicals are coming from, and how a lot of it is out of our control, and how some of it is under our control, and how we can really just kind of mitigate the damage as best as possible. If we talk about the plastics and processed food problem, plastics and food preservatives represent a significant source of these harmful chemicals. The massive production of plastics and the rise of ultra-processed foods have introduced countless toxins into our environment, contaminating our air, our soil, our water, and even the food that we eat. The problem is exacerbated by our reliance on packaging and preservation methods that prioritize convenience over our health. So we have to take a look at that. Contaminated water. Water contamination is another pressing issue, with many Americans unknowingly consuming unsafe levels of toxins like arsenic and PFASs that we just talked about through their tap water. The Environmental Working Group, or the EWG, has found that tap water in many cities contain contaminants well above safe levels. This reality underscores the need for personal vigilance, filtering your water, investing in a filter, because if you don't have a filter, your body becomes the filter. Avoiding known sources of contamination. This is going to be essential for protecting your health. Taking control of your environment in response to this toxic overload, it's crucial to become proactive about reducing your exposure and taking control of your environment. This means filtering your water. This means choosing pesticide-free food. This means avoiding plastics if you can, and selecting personal care products that are free of synthetic chemicals. By making thoughtful choices, you can significantly reduce the toxic burden on your body, allowing your cells to focus on generating good energy rather than constantly battling and bathing in these harmful substances. Because it's not about this toxic substance or that toxic substance by itself. It's this constant bombardment and being barraged by all of it all the time. It's really hard for our body to detoxify and be able to get healthy again. Like, our body is meant to detoxify pollutants and toxins and things that aren't supposed to be in there. It does a really good job of that, as long as it's given the time and the energy to do so. But to sum all this up, minimizing exposure to these synthetic chemicals and these environmental toxins is one of the most effective steps that you can take to protect your metabolic health and your overall well-being. By making simple swaps and filtering your environment, You can support your body's natural ability to thrive. And if you've been doing everything right with your food and nutrition and your exercise and your stress management, and you just can't figure out why you don't feel good, this could be a huge, huge factor right here. So let's do one little recap. Principles for replenishing what modernity took away. Wrapping all this up, to restore what modern life has stripped away, it's essential to embrace principles that promote movement, temperature variability, and minimizing toxin exposure. These guidelines can help you counteract the effects of our sedentary, climate-controlled, and chemically laden world. Your exercise principles: moderate intensity movement, aim for at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise per week. You can calculate your maximum heart rate and try to get within 60 to 70% of that maximum heart rate and spend time there 150 minutes a week. 10,000 steps per day, eventually working your way up, trying to aim for at least 7,000, depending on where you're at now, and then trying to build your way up there and making it so that it's spread out throughout the day, not just one block of walking. Move frequently, incorporate some movement every single hour for at least 8 hours a day. You can measure this with any fitness tracker. I use the Oura Ring, Oura. I have a link you can use, and I'll get you a discount off of the product and off of the membership. I've been with them for years and years before I became an affiliate with them. I think it's the most consistent tracker that you can possibly use, and it's so durable, and they are an amazing company that their customer service is unbeatable. And then resistance training. Engage in resistance training at least 2 times per week, up to 3 times per week if you can, hitting each major muscle group at least 2 times per week, and then working your way up from there. And then moving on to temperature principles: heat exposure. Aim for at least 1 cumulative hour of heat exposure per week, whether it's through a dry sauna, infrared sauna, heated or exercise classes like hot yoga. This helps to stimulate beneficial heat shock proteins and other metabolic pathways. Cold exposure: get at least 12 cumulative minutes of cold exposure per week. This can be achieved through cryotherapy, cold showers, cold immersion in a tub, lake, river, pool, ocean during colder months. Cold exposure activates that brown fat, which enhances our insulin sensitivity and improves our overall metabolic health. And then our toxin principles: filter your air and your water. Use an activated charcoal filter with reverse osmosis system for water and a HEPA filter for your air in your home. This will help reduce your exposure to harmful chemicals and pollutants. Try to eat as clean as possible. Prioritize unprocessed, organic, and regeneratively grown food to minimize your intake of pesticides, additives, preservatives, hormones. Minimize the plastics, which eating clean and unprocessed will help with that. Opt for glass or other safer material over plastic whenever possible. Take inventory of the plastic products in your home, especially in your kitchen, and work to reduce them over time. And then choose non-toxic products, so personal care products. Remove scented products. Consider using products like unscented organic Castile soap or tea tree soap, or organic oils like jojoba or coconut oil for moisturizing. Check product safety. Use the Environmental Working Group, the EWG database, to check for the toxicity ratings of consumer products that you use daily. And then support your own detoxification. Support your body's natural pathways: the liver, the gut, the kidney, the skin, the circulatory system, your lymphatic system, by consistently practicing good energy habits, including proper nutrition, hydration, movement, neat exercise, and rest. By following the movement principles, the temperature principles, the toxin principles, you can begin to reclaim control over your health. You can begin to fortify your body's resilience, and you can generate the good energy needed to thrive in this modern world. And that's it, my friends. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Living the Dream podcast. Please share the knowledge that you gain with your friends and family and hold each other accountable. If you enjoyed this content, it helps a ton if you could post on your social media stories a screenshot of this episode with one takeaway that you learned, And make sure that you tag me and share your journey. Tag me at livingthedream_podcast or at Coach Damien _SD. And let us know how this episode benefited you. Let us know what we missed. Let us know what we got wrong. Tell us what you thought about what we covered on today's episode. We want to know. Message us if you have any suggestions or tips that would help your Living the Dream team that we can discuss on future episodes. I will be right here with you working on making us stronger, happier, and healthier humans. Until next time, friends, keep living the dream.